I fire bullets at myself?
It's genius, isn't it? Take a good look at your watch. Now imagine what it would be like to be minutes away from your own death.
Al Pacino races against the clock to save his career. I mean, his life. I'm Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Richard Roeper. About 15 minutes into the sordid, incomprehensible, astonishingly inept psycho killer mystery gimmick that is 88 Minutes, I began to wonder, could this be the worst movie of Al Pacino's career? Now, he was in Gigli, and don't forget Revolution, but this is a real contender. A movie so bad, even Pacino's permatan and giant hairdo deserve Razzies. Pacino plays Dr. Jack Graham. He's a world-famous, fabulously wealthy forensic psychiatrist. His testimony convicted the Seattle Slayer, but now a copycat seems to be on the loose.
We have a tape that was left at the crime scene. We're going to play it for you now.
This message is for Dr. Jack Graham. You got the wrong man.
As Graham deals with the murder, a bomb threat on campus, the affections of about a half dozen women, and let's not forget that hairdo, a new problem surfaces.
Hello.
You have 88 minutes to live.
What?
You know how long 88 minutes can be, don't you? That's 11:45 a.m.
Who's this?
Tick-tock.
Who the hell is this?
But even with all the madness that morning, one of Dr. Graham's students wants to debate the old Seattle Strangler trial with him.
The evidence was circumstantial. Nothing directly linking Forrester to the crime, except your narrative and Janie Cade's testimony, which...
What's your point?
Just that your testimony was very convincing.
Yeah, it's my job to be convincing.
I thought it was to be right.
Now, you might think 88 Minutes unspools in something resembling real time, with Graham desperately trying to find the taunting killer, but it's 108 minutes, and it feels much longer than that, and there are all kinds of problems with the conventional timeline of the movie itself. 88 Minutes creates an insanely implausible tease and then provides a so-called resolution that's beyond anything that could happen in any movie universe. It's quite possibly the worst movie of 2008 so far. Michael!
Well, the year's young, but I'm with you. Every adjective is the correct adjective, man. Yeah. This thing is like a pole star of lousy. I really is. and this thing gets nuttier and nuttier and more kind of like convoluted, and to the point where you wonder if the screenplay was actually dictated by cell phone and the thing was cutting out all the time. And they kept typing anyway. You
Unbelievable.
know what I mean?
It almost feels as if somebody dropped the script in the first reading and then he just picked it up and all the pages were upside down and out of order, and they said, let's just shoot it anyway. It's so bad that I can't even say it's entertainingly bad.
No,
you feel insulted because they're trying to do a serious, entertaining, keep you on the edge of your seat thriller.
Yeah,
it's not like anybody's winking at the camera.
Entertainment, though, you know what I've really truly had it with is just an absolutely generic serial killer thriller like this, where you're dealing with okay, how many different ways can we sort of torture and mutilate the women? You know, I truly not a good time for me anymore.
And you're right. And Al Pacino, of course, one of my favorite actors of all time. I would say he could do no wrong.
Every third performance,
but he actually can do wrong. And God love him, but he's playing, I think, a character who would have to be probably 20 years younger, and none of it plays. The relationships with the women, his supposed expertise in solving crimes, none of it is a self.
And here's the other thing about Pacino, what he's up to here. It's as if he's determined not to play the cliche of, oh my God, I have 88 minutes to live. I better act like there's a time crunch. He's kind of drifting through it. You know, he seems vaguely put out by his situation. And, there's really not a lot of urgency in anything except the hair. Right? I mean, it's like he's got little blow dryers in there kind of, it's like a symphony of hair.
It's a symphony of awful, this film. All right, sir.
Okay. Sometimes a trick ending can really make a film, and sometimes a trick ending can just make a film more aggravating than it would have been without it. In The Life Before Her Eyes, Uma Thurman plays a small-town resident haunted by the high school massacre she survived 15 years earlier. Her best friend died in the tragedy. In these flashbacks, which themselves flash back even further, Thurman's younger self is played by Evan Rachel Wood, and her friend is played by Ava Amori. They're both good in this scene, which takes place right before tragedy strikes.
What is that? What? Do you hear that? Hang on, I can't hear anything. What the hell?
In the present-day scenes, Thurman cannot shake the memory of what happened, and her own young daughter's also prone to disturbing behavior.
I got a note again from her teacher at school.
Well, you're the one that wanted to send her to that parochial school. Dee, tonight, are you going to try and get some sleep? If you don't sleep, you don't dream.
So where does it all lead? Let's just say that when you do get to the big reveal here, it's a poetic device that feels like a monster cheat, undoing everything you've just experienced, not in a good way. There's a skilled filmmaker at work here. The director, Vadim Perelman, made The House of Sand and Fog a better picture. Here, though, his penchant for dreamy water imagery runs away with him, and with everything else, you can call this one the film of fog and hooey.
Oh, no, Michael, I like this film. I do agree that at times it's almost too beautifully shot, if that makes sense, because of the subject matter, and it almost makes it, you know, too pretty and too poetic when we're dealing with violence, and I don't like that because it almost begins to glorify it. But I thought the performance is very strong here from Evan Rachel Wood and Eva Amari. Their friendship, I thought, you know, really rang true.
Yeah, the actors
And then
are good.
Uma Thurman dealing with, you know, events 15 years earlier and how it continues to haunt her. And as we go back and forth and learn more about the two stories, I was really into this film.
To me, that felt cheap. This idea of
it never felt cheap to me.
To me, this idea of going back to the tragedy over and over and over and getting a little more information about it, I just felt jerked around after a while. And I think in the end, Thurman, you know, there's nothing in the writing to make that woman and her situation, her present-day situation, really interesting. And we don't want to give any of the twists
away.
Well,
you know, it's a reactive role for her. It's not something where we're asking her to carry the film.
Yeah.
And actually, I think the younger actresses have more screen time. It feels like their story gets more
they're
play.
good. I think they almost save it, but I think the thing is shot like a perfume ad. And you know,
I think it's a strong film, and I think, you know, 2 years down the line, whenever people have had a chance to see it that want to see it, we can talk about other elements of this film as well.
We'll give them all away. We'll give them all. Later in the show, Jet Li and Jackie Chan join forces on the big screen for the first time in Forbidden Kingdom.
We can kill each other when it's over.
And Judd Apatow strikes again. We'll review Forgetting Sarah Marshall next.
Oh, this is awkward.
A bit more awkward now.
The wife wants me to do certain things that I find inappropriate. Let me just say that if God was a city planner, he would not put a playground next to a sewage system.
Our next movie is the very funny Forgetting Sarah Marshall. First-time director Nicholas Stoller gives a light and funny touch to one of the funniest movies of 2008, one of the funniest movies of the decade, one of the funniest damn movies I've ever seen. Did I mention I think it's funny?
Did you think it was funny, by the way?
We're leading different lives. It's like you're standing on the dock and I'm in the lake.
Sarah, I swear to God, I'll jump in the lake like a merman.
Do you want to put some clothes on?
Would you like to pick out the outfit that you break up with me in?
Jason Segel wrote the hilarious script, I think it's funny, and stars as Peter, who has just been dumped by Kristen Bell's Sarah Marshall, who's now with a very silly British rocker. And they're all at the same resort.
I am in the Kapua suite.
What are you doing? Stalker!
Have fun.
You are an idiot! Back to your room, Peter. Peter, back to your room.
Did you enjoy that? Do you like what you saw?
Forgetting Sarah Marshall is raunchy and silly, but the satire is razor sharp. The ensemble cast just hilarious, and there's even a sweet romance or two in there as well. As you know, Michael, I love this movie.
It's proof that all raunch is not created equal. You know what I mean? I mean, this is really clever, sharp writing, and first-time director. You know, excellent instincts right away. You know, nice, doesn't overplay the jokes. Bingo.
And it's interesting because on our original review of this a couple of weeks ago on the show, I mentioned it's maybe one of the 50 funniest movies of all time. Right. And people are, they're up in arms over this. I'm hearing from hundreds of viewers saying, how can you say that? I'm like, well, because it is. I mean, why can't you have a movie that comes out now that's just as funny as a movie that came out 30 or 40 years ago?
Well, were any of these people born before Old School was made, or no?
You know, I didn't ask for their IDs, but it's like I'm standing by my review. There's always that fear that you're overselling something. People have to get it for themselves, but it's a comedy, and I think it's sharp, it's funny, it's likable. Yeah. Jason Segel, I think, has a huge future ahead of him as a comedy star.
And you're right. This also, for the Apatow oeuvre, and I like to use that word now, oeuvre, you know, this does make up for Walk Hard, which I thought was disappointing, and Drill Bit Taylor, which was not even worth releasing.
Yeah.
And now we're back on track. So it's good to see. Yeah,
good stuff.
Segel's good. Coming up next, martial arts legends Jackie Chan and Jet Li have middle-aged fists of fury in Forbidden Kingdom.
But first, here's a classic review from atthemoviestv.com, where you can now leave viewer feedback.
Well, I got a big kick out of it. I thought John Goodman was a hoot as the dad. And you mentioned Cocktail. It's a lot like Cocktail. It's also a lot like Flashdance. And you can only expect certain things from movies like this. And I thought this one hit it on all cylinders.
I got news for you. I didn't like Flashdance either. I mean, come on. There has to be something for the gray matter. Something.
All right.
Something.
Praying mantis. Very good. For catching bugs, but not tiger.
Jackie Chan and Jet Li aren't as young as they used to be, but come on, who is? In the engaging new martial arts adventure, The Forbidden Kingdom, these high-flying icons of action cinema share top billing. The hero of the story, though, comes from the mysterious West, not the mysterious East. He's a Boston teenager obsessed with Kung Fu who slips through a portal in time back to ancient China when everybody really was Kung Fu fighting. Michael Angarano plays Jason. His mission is to return a magical staff to its rightful owner, the legendary Monkey King, thereby vanquishing the evil Jade Warlord. Jason's trainer and tour guide is played by Chan in his drunken master comic mode.
I don't know what you're saying. I can't understand you.
That's because you're not listening.
With the help of Silent Monk, played by Lee, he also plays the Monkey King. This band of outsiders takes on the Warlord's minions. Now, in this scene, it may be cherry blossom time, but it's also time to break out the whips.
Kill them.
Now, The Forbidden Kingdom is undeniably a product designed to hit as many demographics as possible, but I enjoyed it for what it is. And if ancient China has to be saved by a kid from Boston, well, at least he's played by a really good actor.
Yeah, everybody's really good here, Michael. I liked it a lot. And we should also mention some fabulous Kung Fu babery in here as well, including one witch-like temptress who has hair like Storm out of the X-Men movies that is a weapon unto itself. You know, I've been really
that comes from a lot of other films, too. So, I mean,
there's a lot of stuff
from
there.
all
it's
different
Crouching
films,
Tiger, Hidden Karate Kid, The Never-Ending Story, all these movies, and a great, but it's a fun mishmash of all these elements. So. And I've been really tough on Jackie Chan over the years on this show with the Rush Hour movies and the Tuxedo and some of these horrible American films he's made. He's very charming here. He can still fight. I'm assuming that's him in a lot of the fight scenes.
I'd say 72%.
He has a great square off with Jet Li, and I'm a fan of Jet Li's as well. So I think there's some great martial arts, a lot of great humor, some romance. I mean, all these elements that they throw together, actually, to me, they all work.
And I think there's going to be some initial disappointment or maybe long-lasting disappointment from people who really want this to be a Jet Li, Jackie Chan film as if they were both still 25, and that's not happening. You know, it is in fact a story about this kid from Boston that has to kind of go back and deal with things and then learn how to be a man and fight the bullies. But given all that and given sort of the calculation of it, I found also the mixture of CGI and real martial arts choreography more elegant than I've ever seen in at least a year in a Hollywood
Very well
picture,
done,
and
a lot of humor here as well. So I think it's
pretty sharp.
It's one of the more entertaining movies we've seen in recent months.
There it is.
All right, next up is a movie not so entertaining. It's the performance art semi-documentary titled Where in the World is Osama Bin Laden? I was a big fan of Morgan Spurlock's fast food doc Supersize Me, but this time Spurlock's one-man show misses the mark. Once again, he puts himself on center stage. He's about to become a father, so he's now suddenly concerned about terrorism in the world. He's going to find Bin Laden, at which point I think he'd be killed.
This is hardcore Taliban country. There's 21 guys here with guns.
When whoever's escorting us says, let's go, it means go now. Go now!
We get scene after scene of Spurlock meeting with people in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Sometimes he's met with hostility, but mostly he learns that Middle Easterners don't hate Americans, they hate American policy. Really. As for the quest to find Bin Laden, it's just silly and self-aggrandizing. Spurlock has some fun with video game techniques, and he's certainly a likable guy, but the film is just too simplistic and too repetitive. A real disappointment.
Oh, it adds nothing to what's going on in the world today, and I think Spurlock just comes up like a yutz in this thing. And this whole comic premise of like, well, I'm going to go over and find Bin Laden, and scene after scene, country after country, you don't get a sense of any kind of differences among the people or even our commonalities. It's just this one, white guy from America going over there and finding out that Muslims and Arabs are people too. And I just,
and it's like,
to me, that's the end of it.
It's like, hey guys, get a shot of me on the camel going through the desert. Let's stage this, let's stage that.
No, and in Supersize Me, he had there was a finite point to the documentary, and it was entertaining. This does not work.
Not at all.
No. I got a cross-cultural film that's actually really sharp. Okay. You may not know Richard Jenkins, the actor, by name, but you probably know his face. He played Nate Fisher Sr. on the HBO series 6 Feet Under, and he's popped up in small movie roles for decades. Now, in a triumph triumph for character actors everywhere. Jenkins gets his mitts on a leading role in The Visitor, a very satisfying picture. He plays an economics professor at a small Connecticut college. On a rare trip into New York City, Walter walks into his apartment only to find he's not alone.
Do you have keys?
Yes, of course I have keys. This is my apartment.
Show me your keys.
All right. I've had this apartment for 25 years.
So why haven't you been here?
Because I live in Connecticut. I haven't been down here in a very long time.
Someone's illegally sublet Walter's apartment to a Syrian man and his Senegalese girlfriend. The Visitor becomes a story of a very unlikely friendship. Here, Tarek, played by Hawes Slayman, teaches Walter to play the African drum.
Walter, I know you're a very smart man, but with the drum you have to remember not to think. Thinking just screws it up, okay?
Okay.
Better. Did you think?
No.
Good.
Much of the film deals with Tarek, who's in the country illegally, being threatened with deportation in an unforgiving post-9/11 world. And Jenkins is wonderful at playing a buttoned-down character, relearning in the autumn of his life how to fully re-enter the human race.
I'm with you every step of the way, Michael. Like Under the Same Moon, it's a film about problems in this country and immigration without hitting us over the head. It's really about the characters and the people and getting to know and like them so much. And Richard Jenkins, you know, such a good actor. And I think there are so many actors like him that you see in all these parts, you're like, he's that guy. Oh, that guy, I like that guy. And given the opportunity to do a lead role, I mean, he knocks it right out of the park.
To me,
it's a
he's
wonderful
the
performance.
Guy like Richard Jenkins. In fact, Richard Jenkins should have played the lead in About Schmidt. You know what I mean? Instead of like a movie star trying to play an everyman from Nebraska.
But as we know, a movie often like About Schmidt doesn't get made unless you can say, well, we got Jack Nicholson, we have Morgan Freeman, we have Anthony Hopkins, we have these legendary actors, and there's so many other good actors. So,
but this is the great thing.
The script here is very strong.
Very good.
All of the performances.
And this is the great thing about Tom McCarthy, the writer-director. You know, he gives Peter Dinklage his big leading shot on the station agent. Richard Jenkins has his here.
Very good film. All right, coming up next, Julia Roberts, Tom Hanks, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, speaking of unknowns, trying to make their way in the movie world, fight Charlie Wilson's war in our video segment. But first, here's a look at what's coming up on next week's show.
Yeah, I can fly.
They thought you guys were terrorizers.
Excuse me, can I just spray a little Pam down in that area before the baby comes out?
This week's video segment is brought to you by Raisinets. Make a deliciously smart choice with Raisinets.
Life betrayed you. And you went into hiding, and you took your characters with you.
Okay, looking at movies new on DVD, I really like starting out in the evening and the very scary The Orphanage. And my video pick this week, Michael, is Charlie Wilson's War. Not one of your favorite films.
No, it was not.
But I like the dialogue a lot, and of course the Oscar-nominated Best Supporting Actor, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
You stood there and you listened to me?
I wouldn't stand at the door. Don't be an idiot. I bugged the scotch bottle.
What?
It's got a little transmitter on it. I got a little thing in my ear. Get past it.
Very loosely based on true events. Charlie Wilson's War is a flawed film, but I thought it was very funny. Great work from Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I also enjoyed Tom Hanks in this film.
Hoffman's the best thing in it for sure, and he deserved that nomination. And it was nice to see The Savages, another film with Hoffman and Laura Linney, get some nomination love from the Academy Awards this year. Often, a good film of this size gets lost in the shuffle. Linney and Hoffman play siblings. He's a professor of dramatic literature. She's a struggling playwright, and they must come to terms with each other and their father, played by Philip Bosco, who's coping with Alzheimer's. The film's trenchant, clear-eyed, and yes, it's a comedy that leaves you with a shot of hope for all of us mixed-up, middle-aged folk.
Well, you know, Michael, this summer I'm going to go to France. I'm going to break into Marion Cotillard's home, take the Oscar, and bring it to Laura Linney, who actually deserved it.
Well, that's
my mission.
That's borderline stalking.
With Jet Li and Jackie Chan to help me along the way.
Right. Okay. Well, then you're legally more protected. I think.
Thank you, sir. All right. The Savages and Charlie Wilson's War will be in stores on Tuesday, along with the second season of one of my favorite TV series, Friday Night Lights.
And we'll be back with my picks for 3 to see, the best 3 movies in theaters, right after this.
Closed captioning for Ebert and Roeper is sponsored by...
Next time, use the movie ticket stock card. It's fast, easy, and painless.
Okay, now it's time for 3 to see. 3 to see, right?
I get it.
My picks for the best 3 movies in theaters right now. Number 3, Young at Heart, the delightful British documentary about a senior choral group singing everything from James Brown to Sonic Youth. Number 2, The Visitor, simple, moving story of cross-cultural connection, starring Richard Jenkins in a role he was born to play. And number 1, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, another reinvention of the raunchy romantic comedy genuinely funny and surprisingly big-hearted.
Very good stuff. You know, I've seen Coldplay perform Fix You a couple of times live, and I still like
Not
the old
like
dude's
this.
version of Fix You
Not that.
in Young and
He
Hard.
could teach
I
him
like
a few
it better.
things.
All right, that's it for this week. Until next week, the balcony is closed.
It's Tour de French Toast at IHOP. 4 of our famously phenomenal French toasts, topped, swirled, and stuffed with goodness. IHOP. Come hungry, leave happy.
Oh boy, smelly shoes. No smell?
Odor Eaters destroys odor, absorbs wetness. Odor Eaters insoles powder and spray.
O Cedar presents new Pro Scrub. Twice as much Collectex, better than ever dirt pickup. O Cedar makes your life easy. Pro Scrub Mop from O Cedar.
What's in here is what's in here. Real peaches, fresh cream, Breyer's all natural, extraordinary taste.